Captain Vex Korath stood on the bridge of his massive warship, the Void Render. His dark purple skin gleamed under the red lights of the command center. Like all Craxians, he was tall and strong, with thick armor-like skin that could stop most weapons. His yellow eyes scanned the star maps in front of him. The Craxians were proud of being the strongest species in the galaxy. They came from a world called Craxus Prime, where most other creatures would die within minutes. Their planet had rivers of hot lava, rain that could burn through metal, and giant beasts with crystal shells that tried to eat everything they saw. Vex remembered his childhood on Craxus Prime. Every day was a fight to stay alive. The air was so thick with poison that young Craxians had to learn to hold their breath for hours. The ground would shake and split open without warning. Giant flying creatures with razor-sharp teeth would swoop down from the red sky. Only the strongest survived to become adults. That harsh world made the Craxians into perfect warriors. They could survive almost anything. Their bodies were tough as stone. They could fight without food or water for days. They felt no fear because they had seen the worst things possible on their home planet. For 300 years, the Craxians had been taking over other worlds. Every species they met was weak compared to them. Some tried to fight back, but they always lost. Others surrendered right away when they saw how strong the Craxians were. The galaxy was full of soft creatures who lived on easy worlds. They had never faced real danger. They built their cities in safe places and lived comfortable lives. When the Craxians arrived, these weak aliens could not believe that any creature could be so tough and deadly. Vex liked being feared. He enjoyed watching other species shake with terror when they saw his ship. The Void Render was the size of a small moon and covered in weapons. It had destroyed entire fleets without getting a scratch. His second-in-command, Commander Zek, walked. Up to him, Zek was shorter than Vex, but just as deadly. He had scars all over his face from fighting the crystal beasts back home. "Captain, we are getting a strange message," Zek said. "It is coming from the edge of our territory." Vex turned to look at him. "What kind of message?" "A distress call. Some unknown species is asking for help. They say they are under attack by the Zephyrian Collective." Vex smiled, showing his sharp teeth. The Zephyrians were a medium strength species that liked to attack weaker worlds. They were not as strong as the Craxians, but they could still destroy most other aliens. "What do these unknown creatures call themselves?" Vex asked. "They say they are humans from a place called Earth." Zek replied. Vex had never heard of humans or Earth before. That meant they were probably a new species that had just started traveling between stars. New species were always weak and scared. They usually became slaves for the Craxians without much of a fight. "How far away are they?" Vex asked. 2 days. At full speed, Captain. Vex thought about this. The Zephyrians would probably finish destroying these humans before the Craxians could get there. But maybe some would survive. New slaves were always useful. And if the humans had any interesting technology, the Craxians could take it. "Set course for this Earth," Vex ordered. Full speed, the bridge crew quickly started working. The Void Render turned toward the human star system and began moving faster than light. Vex went to his private room to learn more about these humans. The computer did not have much information. Earth seemed to be a small blue and green planet with lots of water. The humans had only been traveling in space for a short time. Their technology looked basic compared to Craxian weapons. Vex read that Earth had different types of land, some hot, some cold, some dry, some wet. This seemed very strange to him. Craxus Prime was the same everywhere, hot, poisonous, and deadly. How could creatures evolve properly if their world kept changing? The humans probably lived in the safest parts of their planet. They had probably never faced real danger. When they saw the mighty Craxians, they would beg to become slaves in exchange for protection. 2 days later, the Void Render arrived at the edge of the human star system. Vex stood on the bridge and looked at the battle happening in space. Human ships were fighting against Zephyrian attackers. The human ships were smaller than Zephyrian vessels, but they moved very fast. They used strange fighting tactics that Vex had never seen before. Instead of facing their enemies directly, they hit and ran away, then hit again from a different direction. Interesting, Zek said. These humans are lasting longer than expected. Against the Zephyrians. Vex watched as a human ship flew straight at a much larger Zephyrian battleship. At the last second, it spun around and fired all its weapons at the enemy's weak spot. The Zephyrian ship exploded. They are clever, Vex admitted. But cleverness cannot beat true strength. Should we help them, Captain? Vex smiled. Yes, but let them know who their masters are. Send them a message. The communication officer sent a signal to the human ships. Unknown species called humans. This is Captain Vex Koreth of the Craxian Empire. We have come to help you fight these Zephyrians. Surrender to us after the battle, and we will protect you. A few minutes later, they received a reply. This is Commander Jake Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force. Thank you for your offer of help. We would be happy to work together. Vex was surprised. Most species either begged for mercy or tried to run away when they met Craxians. These humans sounded calm and polite, but not afraid. Shall we attack the Zephyrians now? Zek asked. Yes, Vex said. Show these humans what real Deathworlders can do. The Void Render moved toward the battle. Its massive weapons began firing at the Zephyrian ships. Each shot could destroy a normal vessel completely. The Zephyrians saw the Craxian ship and immediately tried to escape. They knew they could not fight against true Deathworlders in less than an hour. All the Zephyrian ships were destroyed or had run away. The humans sent another message thanking the Craxians for their help. Vex looked at the human ships floating nearby. They seemed so small and fragile. Soon he would meet these humans face to face and show them their place in the galaxy. He would explain how the universe really worked. The strong ruled over the weak, and the Craxians were the strongest of all. He had no idea that everything he believed about strength and survival was about to change forever. Commander Jake Sullivan stood in the communication room of his flagship, the Liberty. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm blue eyes. Jake had been fighting in space for 20 years, but he had never met aliens like these Craxians before. Craxian message was still playing on the screen. Their captain had said something about humans surrendering and becoming protected. Jake frowned. The Craxians had helped them win the battle, but they talked like Earth belonged to them now. What do you think, Lisa? Jake asked. Dr. Lisa Morgan was sitting at the computer next to him. She was the ship's expert on alien species. Lisa was young, with short brown hair and smart green eyes. She had studied every known alien race in the galaxy. I have never heard of Craxians before, Lisa said, but the way they talk suggests they think they are superior to us. Many alien species have this attitude when they first meet humans. Jake nodded. They seem very confident. Did you see how easily they destroyed those Zephyrian ships? Yes. Their weapons are very powerful. But Jake, I noticed something strange. The Craxians never came close to the battle until the end. They stayed far away and only attacked when the Zephyrians were already losing. Maybe they were being careful. Jake suggested. Lisa shook her head. I do not think so. Look at this. She pointed to her screen. I scanned their ship during the battle. The Craxians are wearing heavy protective suits inside their own vessel. Why would they need protection on their own ship? Before Jake could answer, another message came from the Craxians. Commander Sullivan, this is Captain Vex Koreth. We would like to meet with you, face to face. We wish to discuss your planet's future under Craxian protection. Jake and Lisa looked at each other. Under Craxian protection? Jake said. That sounds like they want to take over Earth. Should we refuse to meet them? Lisa asked. Jake thought. For a moment. No, let's talk to them. Maybe we can learn something useful, but we'll be ready for trouble. Jake sent a reply. Captain Korath, we welcome the chance to meet. You are invited to come aboard our ship. We can discuss working together. As equals. An hour later, a small Craxian shuttle approached the Liberty. Jake watched from the docking bay as the alien ship landed. It was black and covered in thick armor. Even the shuttle looked like it was built for war. The shuttle door opened, and Captain Vex stepped out. Jake was surprised by how big the alien was. Vex was almost 8 feet tall with dark purple skin that looked as hard as rock. His yellow eyes glowed in the light of the docking bay. Behind Vex came 2 other Craxians. All 3 aliens were wearing full environmental suits with thick helmets. They moved slowly and carefully, like they were afraid of something. Jake walked forward with Lisa and his security chief, Danny Roberts. Danny was a strong man with black hair who always stayed alert for danger. Welcome aboard the Liberty, Jake said. I am Commander Sullivan. Vex looked down at Jake. Even through his helmet, his voice sounded deep and threatening. I am Captain Vex Korath of the mighty Craxian Empire. We have come to discuss your world's surrender. Jake kept his face calm, but inside he was getting angry. I think there has been a misunderstanding, Captain. Earth is not surrendering to anyone. We are grateful for your help against the Zephyrians, but we remain independent. Vex laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in his helmet. Independent? You are a weak species from a soft world. You cannot survive without the protection of true Deathworlders like us. Deathworlders? Lisa asked. What do you mean? We come from Craxus Prime, the most dangerous planet in the galaxy, Vex said proudly. Our world has lava rivers, poison, air, and deadly beasts. Only the strongest can live there. We are the ultimate survivors. Lisa nodded politely. That sounds very challenging. May I ask why you are wearing environmental suits? Are our ship's conditions uncomfortable for you? Vex hesitated. Your ship is unusually hostile. The temperature is too high, and the air pressure hurts our bodies. Jake looked confused. Too high? The temperature in this docking bay is only 20 degrees Celsius, and our air pressure is completely normal. Normal for you, perhaps, Vex said, but we are accustomed to the harsh conditions of our homeworld. Lisa pulled out her tablet and showed it to Jake. She had been scanning the Craxians since they arrived. Captain Korath, according to my readings, the conditions on Craxus Prime are actually less extreme than many places on Earth. Vex's helmet turned toward her. That is impossible. Craxus Prime is the deadliest world known to exist. I do not doubt that it is dangerous, Lisa said carefully. But Earth has locations with higher temperatures, lower temperatures, more pressure, less pressure, and more toxic environments than your homeworld. You are lying, Vex said angrily. Jake stepped forward. Dr. Morgan never lies. Would you like to see some examples? Lisa touched her tablet, and a hologram appeared in the air. This is the Mariana Trench on Earth. The pressure there is over 1,000 times greater than what you experience on Craxus Prime. Humans go there regularly for research. Vex stared at the hologram. Impossible. No living thing could survive such pressure. And this, Lisa continued, is Mount Everest. The air is so thin that most creatures would die from lack of oxygen. Humans climb it for fun. Another hologram showed a frozen mountain peak covered in snow. Vex could see tiny figures moving up the mountainside. Those cannot be humans, Vex said. They would freeze to death. The temperature there is minus 40 degrees Celsius, Lisa explained. Much colder than your homeworld ever gets. Jake watched as Vex became more and more uncomfortable. The alien captain was clearly having trouble believing what he was seeing. Show him Death Valley, Danny suggested. Lisa nodded and changed the hologram. Now it showed a desert landscape with rocks and sand stretching to the horizon. This is Death Valley in California. The ground temperature can reach 80 degrees Celsius. The air is so dry that it can kill most life forms in hours. And humans live there? Vex asked quietly. Some do, Jake said. Others visit for vacation. Vex was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke again. These must be your strongest warriors. Your planet's champions. Jake shook his head. No, Captain. These are ordinary people. Children play in these environments. Elderly humans go there to relax. Children? Vex repeated. Lisa showed another hologram. This one displayed a group of human children building snowmen in the Arctic. These kids are having fun in temperatures that would kill most alien species. Vex stumbled backward. His two companions caught him before he could fall. Are you all right? Captain? Jake asked with genuine concern. I need to return to my ship, Vex said. His voice sounded weak through the helmet speaker. I must think about what you have shown me. Of course, Jake said. But Captain, I want you to know that we do not think less of you because your world is different from ours. Every species adapts to their environment in their own way. Vex looked at Jake with his glowing yellow eyes. You ... You are not afraid of us. Should we be? Jake asked honestly. We are Deathworlders, Vex said, but his voice lacked the confidence it had before. We are the strongest species in the galaxy. I am sure you are very strong, Jake said kindly. But strength comes in many forms. As the Craxians walked back to their shuttle, Lisa whispered to Jake. I think we just shattered their entire worldview. Jake nodded. The question is, what will they do about it? They watched the Craxian shuttle leave the docking bay and return to the massive warship waiting in space. Jake had a feeling this was just the beginning of a very interesting conversation. Captain Vex sat in his private quarters aboard the Void Render, staring at the wall. The meeting with the humans had not gone as planned. Everything he believed about strength and survival was being questioned. Commander Zek entered the room without knocking. Captain, the humans have sent another message. They want to invite us for something called a cultural exchange. Vex looked up. What is a cultural exchange? They want to show us how humans live and work, Zek explained. They say it will help us understand each other better. Vex stood up slowly. His body still felt strange after being on the human ship. The air pressure there had given him a headache, and the temperature had made him sweat inside his protective suit. Perhaps this is a good idea, Vex said. We need to learn more about these humans. There is something different about them. Different how? Zek asked. They are not afraid of us, Vex replied. Every other species in the galaxy fears the Craxians. But these humans treated us like ... like equals. An hour later, Vex and Zek were back on the Liberty. This time, Commander Sullivan met them in a call. Different part of the ship. The room was large and bright, with strange equipment along the walls. Welcome to our recreation center, Jake said. This is where our crew exercises and relaxes during their free time. A human woman walked over to them. She was short with blonde hair, tied back in a ponytail. Her muscles were clearly visible under her simple clothing. This is Lieutenant Amy Carter, Jake said. She helps keep our crew in good physical condition. Amy smiled at the Craxians. Hello. I heard you wanted to see how humans stay strong. Would you like to try some of our exercises? Vex looked around the room. Humans were doing various activities. Some were lifting heavy weights. Others were running on machines that moved under their feet. A few were hitting large bags that hung from the ceiling. "This seems very violent," Zek observed. Amy laughed. "Oh no, this is just for fun and health. We do this to relax after work." "Relax?" Vex could not understand. "Fighting is how you relax?" "Well, it's not really fighting," Amy explained. "It's exercise. It makes us feel good and keeps our bodies strong." She walked over to a human man who was lifting a metal bar with heavy weights on each end. The man was sweating but smiling. "Hey, Pete, can you show our guests your deadlift?" Amy asked. The man named Pete nodded and added more weight to his bar. Vex watched in amazement as Pete lifted over 200 kilograms above his head. The human did not seem to struggle at all. "How much do you weigh?" Vex asked Pete. "About 80 kilograms, Pete replied, setting the weight down gently. Vex was confused. "You lifted more than twice your own body weight." "Yeah, not bad for today," Pete said casually. "I'm hoping to get to 300 kilograms by next month." Zek whispered to Vex in their own language. "Captain, that human is lifting more weight than our strongest warriors." Amy heard them talking and smiled. "Pete is our chief engineer, but he's also one of our best weightlifters. Would you like to try lifting something?" Vex shook his head quickly. "No, thank you. We do not want to embarrass ourselves." "Don't worry about that," Amy said kindly. "Everyone starts somewhere. How about we show you something easier?" She led them to a different area where humans were doing something called yoga. They were bending their bodies into positions that looked impossible. "This helps us stay flexible and calm our minds," Amy explained. Vex watched a young woman bend backward until her hands touched the ground behind her head. Her spine curved like a snake. "Does that not hurt?" Vex asked. "Not at all," the woman replied. "It feels great. Want to try?" "I think my spine would break," Vex said honestly. Jake joined them and pointed to another area. "Let me show you our zero-gravity training room." They walked through a door into a spherical chamber. Inside, several humans were floating in the thing. Air, moving gracefully in 3 dimensions without any support. "We use this to prepare for spacewalks," Jake explained. "All of our crew members train here regularly." Dr. Susan Blake, the ship's medical officer, floated over to them. She was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and kind eyes. "Hello," she said, spinning slowly in the air. "I'm Dr. Blake. I heard you were interested in human physical capabilities." "This is impossible," Zek said. "How can you move so well without gravity? Most species become sick and confused in zero gravity." "Practice," Dr. Blake replied. "We start training as children. By the time we join the Space Force, moving in zero gravity feels natural." She demonstrated by doing a perfect somersault in the air, then gently pushed off a wall to float back to them. "Many humans actually prefer zero gravity," she continued. "Some of our workers live in space stations for years without ever visiting a planet." Vex felt dizzy just watching her move. Craxians could survive in zero gravity, but they hated it. It made them feel sick and confused. They always tried to get back to normal gravity as quickly as possible. "Would you like to see our combat training?" Jake asked. They moved to another room where Security Chief Danny Roberts was teaching a class. Several humans were practicing fighting techniques without weapons. "This is hand-to-hand combat training," Danny explained. "We learn this in case our weapons fail during a mission." 2 humans began sparring. They moved incredibly fast, blocking and attacking with precise movements. Their bodies twisted and spun in ways that seemed to defy physics. "These are your warriors?" Vex asked. "Actually, no," Danny replied. "These are just regular crew members. Our real warriors train much harder than this." One of the sparring humans accidentally hit a metal wall panel with his fist. Instead of crying out in pain, he just shook his hand and kept fighting. Did he just punch solid metal? Zek whispered. The walls on our ships are pretty tough, Danny said with a shrug. But human bones are tougher than most people think. Vex stared at the small dent the human's fist had left in the metal wall. Craxian bones were hard as stone, but even they would break before making a dent like that. This is impossible, Vex said, more to himself than to anyone else. Amy heard him and smiled. What's impossible? Everything, Vex replied. Your species should not be able to do these things. You come from a soft world with comfortable conditions. Comfortable? Jake laughed. Captain, I think you might have the wrong idea about Earth. Your planet has water and plants, Vex said. I saw the pictures. It looks peaceful and safe. Parts of it are, Jake agreed. But Earth is a very diverse world. We have environments that would challenge any species. Dr. Blake floated closer. To them, Captain, would you like to know something interesting? The conditions here on this ship are actually quite mild compared to many places where humans live and work. What do you mean? Vex asked. Well, the temperature here is 22 degrees Celsius, she explained. But humans regularly work in places where the temperature is over 50 degrees Celsius. Some work in places where it's minus 40 degrees Celsius. For how long? Zek asked. Hours, sometimes days, Dr. Blake replied. And that's just normal work. Some humans choose to live in those places permanently. Vex felt his legs getting weak again. Choose to live there? Oh yes, Amy added. Lots of humans move to extreme environments because they enjoy the challenge. We have cities in deserts, on mountains, even underwater. Underwater? Vex repeated. Sure, Jake said. Some humans spend months underwater in research stations. The pressure there would crush most. Alien species, but we've learned to adapt. Vex looked around the room at all the humans exercising and training. They seemed so casual about their incredible abilities. What they considered normal exercise would kill most Craxians. Captain, Zek whispered urgently, I think we need to reconsider our understanding of these humans. Vex nodded slowly. Everything he thought he knew about Deathworlders was turning out to be wrong. The Craxians had spent centuries believing they were the ultimate survivors, the strongest species in the galaxy. But these humans made Craxian strength look weak. They did impossible things and called it relaxation. They lived in conditions that would kill Craxians and called it comfortable. Commander Sullivan, Vex said quietly, I think I would like to see more of your people's capabilities. Jake smiled. I thought you might. How would you feel about visiting Earth itself? Vex swallowed hard. After what he had seen on this ship, he was both terrified and fascinated to see what the human homeworld was really like. 3 days later, Captain Vex found himself standing on the surface of Earth for the first time. He wore his heaviest environmental suit and carried extra oxygen tanks. Even with all this protection, he felt nervous. Dr. Lisa Morgan stood beside him wearing only light clothing. She had brought the Craxians to Antarctica, one of the coldest places on Earth. Snow and ice stretched as far as Vex could see. The temperature here is minus 35 degrees Celsius, Lisa said calmly. This is actually a warm day for Antarctica. Vex checked his suit's readings. Even with heating systems running at full power, he could barely stay warm. His breath fogged up his helmet visor. How can you stand this cold? Vex asked. Humans have lived in places like this for thousands of years, Lisa replied. We learned to adapt. A figure approached them across the ice. It was a man wearing thick but simple clothing. He was not wearing any kind of environmental suit like the Craxians. Dr. Morgan, the man called out. Good to see you again. Hello, Kevin, Lisa replied. This is Dr. Kevin Murphy. He has been living at this research station for 8 months. Doctor. Murphy pulled off his heavy gloves and extended his hand to shake with Vex. His bare skin was pink from the cold, but looked healthy. Nice to meet you, Kevin said cheerfully. Sorry about the weather. It's been unusually cold this week. Unusually cold? Zek repeated. This is not normal? Oh no, it usually gets much colder than this, Kevin explained. Last month we had temperatures down to minus 60 degrees Celsius. That was fun. Vex stared at the human. Fun? Well, challenging is probably a better word, Kevin laughed. But I love working in extreme environments. That's why I became a polar researcher. Kevin led them to his research station. It was a simple building made of metal and plastic. Inside, the temperature was comfortable for humans, but still too cold for the Craxians. I study ice formations and climate patterns, Kevin explained. Most of my work is done outside, even in the worst weather. He showed them pictures on his computer. The images showed Kevin working outside in blizzards, so intense that Vex could barely see him through the swirling snow. This storm lasted 3 days, Kevin said proudly. The wind speed was over 100 kilometers per hour, and the temperature dropped to minus 50 degrees Celsius. But we had important data to collect, so we kept working. Were you not afraid of dying? Vex asked. Kevin looked confused. Dying? No, not really. I had proper equipment and training. Besides, this is what I love doing. After Antarctica, Lisa took the Craxians to Death Valley in California. The change was dramatic. Instead of ice and snow, they now faced endless desert under a blazing sun. The ground temperature here is 78 degrees Celsius, Lisa announced. The air temperature is 49 degrees Celsius. Vex's cooling systems were working at maximum power, but he still felt like he was being cooked inside his suit. The heat was worse than anything on Craxus Prime. No one can live in this, Zek said weakly. Actually, people do, Lisa replied. Let me introduce you to Maria Santos. A woman walked toward them across the burning sand. She wore light-colored clothing and a wide hat, but no environmental suit. Her skin was tanned dark from years in the sun. Welcome to Death Valley, Maria said with a big smile. I'm a park ranger here. I've been working in this desert for 15 years. How do you survive? Vex asked. Even speaking was difficult in the heat. You learn to respect the desert, Maria explained. Drink lots of water, wear the right clothes, and know when to seek shade. It's really not that hard once you get used to it. She pointed to a group of people in the distance. Those folks are tourists. They come here from all over the world to experience one of Earth's most extreme environments. For pleasure? Zek asked in disbelief. Absolutely, Maria replied. Some people think Death Valley is the most beautiful place on Earth. The sunsets here are amazing. As if to prove her point, several tourists walked past them. They were elderly humans who looked completely comfortable in the deadly heat. My husband and I come here every year for our wedding anniversary, one old woman told them. It's so peaceful and quiet. The final stop was the most shocking of all. Lisa brought the Craxians to an underwater research station in the Pacific Ocean. They traveled down in a special submarine that could handle the crushing pressure of the deep sea. We are now 3 kilometers below the surface, Lisa announced. The pressure here is 300 times greater than at sea level. Through the submarine's windows, Vex could see the research station. It was a collection of transparent domes connected by tunnels. Inside the domes, humans were walking around normally. The pressure would crush our ship like an empty can, Zek observed. That's why the station is specially built, Lisa agreed. But the humans inside are living and working in those conditions. They docked with the station and met Dr. Carl Johnson, the marine biologist in charge. Carl was a thin man with gray hair and excited eyes. "Welcome to the deep," Carl said enthusiastically. "We've been down here for 6 months studying deep sea life." 6 months? Vex repeated. "At this pressure?" "It's perfectly safe as long as you know what you're doing," Carl replied. "Some of our researchers have spent over a year at this depth. The human body adapts remarkably well." Carl showed them around the station. Humans were working in laboratories, exercising in gyms, and even playing games in recreation areas. They acted like living under crushing ocean pressure was completely normal. "The most amazing part," Carl continued, "is that some humans dive to these depths with minimal equipment. They hold their breath and swim down here using only their bodies." "That is impossible," Vex said firmly. "I'll show you the videos," Carl replied. He played recordings of human divers descending to incredible depths without any breathing equipment. They moved gracefully through the water like they belonged there. "The deepest recorded dive by a human was over 300 meters, Carl explained. "That's just using their lungs and their body's natural abilities." Vex watched the videos in stunned silence. Everything he thought he knew about physical limitations was being destroyed. On the submarine ride back to the surface, Vex sat quietly while Zek and Lisa talked. His mind was struggling to process what he had seen about the Craxians. Had always believed that surviving their harsh homeworld made them the ultimate species. But these humans lived and worked in conditions that would kill Craxians instantly. And they did it by choice. Even worse, the humans seemed to enjoy these extreme environments. They called them beautiful, peaceful, and fun. What kind of species found deadly conditions relaxing? "Dr. Morgan," Vex said finally, "how many environments like this exist on Earth?" "Hundreds," Lisa replied. "Maybe thousands. Earth has deserts, mountains, oceans, forests, tundra, volcanoes, caves, and more. Each environment has its own extreme conditions, and humans have learned to live in all of them." "All of them?" Zek asked weakly. "Well, most of them," Lisa corrected. "We're still working on living inside active volcanoes, but we're getting close." Vex leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes. The Craxians had spent centuries conquering other species because they believed they were the strongest survivors in the galaxy. But compared to humans, the Craxians were the weak ones. Earth was not just a death world. It was a collection of dozens of death worlds all on one planet. And the humans had not just survived them all. They had thrived in them. "Commander Sullivan was right," Vex said quietly. "Strength comes in many forms." He looked out the submarine window at the dark ocean above them. Tomorrow, he would have to report back to the Craxian Empire about what he had learned. But how could he explain that everything they believed about themselves was wrong? How could he tell his people that the galaxy's true Deathworlders had been hiding on a small blue planet, calling themselves human? Captain Vex stood in the school playground, watching something that broke his understanding of reality. Human children, some as young as 5 years old, were playing games that would challenge adult Craxian warriors. A little girl with red hair was hanging upside down from metal bars, laughing as she swung from one to another. The bars were hot from the sun, hot enough to burn Craxian skin, but the child treated them like toys. "That's my daughter Emma," said Nancy Bell, the school teacher who was showing them around. Nancy was a kind woman with brown hair and patient eyes. "She loves the monkey bars." 2 boys were running across a field in the full heat of the afternoon sun. The temperature was 38 degrees Celsius, but they were not even breathing hard. They were playing something called soccer, kicking a ball back and forth while running at full speed. "Do they not get tired?" Zek asked. He was sweating heavily inside his environmental suit despite his cooling systems. "Oh, they'll get tired eventually," Nancy replied. "But human children have incredible energy. They can play like this for hours." A group of older children, maybe 10 years old, were climbing on a tall structure made of ropes and wooden platforms. They moved fearlessly 20 feet above the ground, with no safety equipment except the soft sand below. "Are they not afraid of falling?" Vex asked. "A little," Nancy admitted. "But that's part of learning. Human children develop their physical abilities by constantly challenging themselves." Commander Jake Sullivan and Dr. Lisa Morgan stood nearby, watching the Craxians' reactions. They had brought Vex and Zek to this elementary school to show them one final truth about humanity. "Captain," Jake said gently, "these children are playing in conditions that your species would consider hostile. But for humans, this is just a normal day." "Normal," Vex repeated the word like it was a foreign concept. A small boy with black hair ran up to them. He could not have been more than 6 years old. His face was red from running in the heat, but he was grinning widely. "Are you real aliens?" the boy asked excitedly. "You look super cool." Vex looked down at the tiny human. This child was smaller and seemingly more fragile than any creature Vex had ever seen. Yet the boy had been playing outside in heat that was making the mighty Craxian captain feel weak. "Yes, we are aliens," Vex replied carefully. "We come from a planet called Craxis Prime." "Wow, is it fun there?" the boy asked. Vex did not know how to answer. Craxis Prime was not fun. It was a constant battle for survival. Fun was not a concept that existed on his homeworld. "It is challenging," Vex said finally. "Cool. I love challenges," the boy said. "Last week my dad took me rock climbing. We went up a really big mountain. It was awesome." The boy ran off to rejoin his friends, leaving Vex staring after him. A 6-year-old human child climbed mountains for fun. "What kind of species was this?" "Nancy," Lisa said, "could you tell our guests about the field trip you took last month?" Nancy smiled. "Oh yes, we took the children camping in the Rocky Mountains. They loved it, even though it snowed unexpectedly." "Snowed?" Zach asked. "The temperature dropped to -10 degrees Celsius," Nancy explained. The children thought it was wonderful. They built snowmen and had snowball fights. Vex felt dizzy. Human children played in conditions that would kill adult Craxians, and they enjoyed it. "How do they survive?" Vex asked weakly. "Humans are incredibly adaptable," Jake explained. "Our children start learning to handle different environments from the moment they can walk. By the time they become adults, they can live almost anywhere." As if to prove his point, the school bell rang and the children all ran toward the building. They moved across the hot pavement in their bare feet, completely unbothered by the burning surface. "Don't they feel pain?" Vex asked. "Of course they do," Nancy replied. "But human pain tolerance is quite high. We learn early that minor discomfort is not dangerous." That evening, Vex sat in his quarters aboard the Void Render, trying to write his report to the Craxian High Command. How could he explain what he had learned about humans? The Craxians had built their entire identity around being Deathworlders. They were proud of surviving Craxis Prime's harsh conditions. They used that pride to justify conquering weaker species. But humans were not weaker. They were stronger than any species Vex had ever encountered. They did not just survive extreme conditions. They sought them out for entertainment.ze. Kay entered the room without his usual confidence. The past week had changed him too. "Captain, I have been thinking," Zek said quietly. "What does this mean? For the Craxian Empire?" Vex looked up from his blank report. "I do not know, Zek. Everything we believed about ourselves was wrong. Should we attack the humans?" Zek asked. "Try to conquer them before they become a threat?" Vex shook his head. "Did you see their children playing in that heat? Did you watch their workers living underwater? We could not conquer these humans even if we wanted to. Then what do we do?" Before Vex could answer, An alert sounded throughout the ship. The communication officer's voice came over the speakers. "Captain, we have an emergency. A solar flare is heading toward this star system. All ships are advised to evacuate immediately." Vex and Zek rushed to the bridge. The screens showed a massive wave of deadly radiation approaching from the sun. It would arrive in less than an hour. "All crew to evacuation stations," Vex ordered. "Prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace." The Craxian crew worked frantically to prepare their ship for escape. Solar flares were one of the most dangerous things in space. The radiation could kill any living creature and destroy most technology. "Captain," the communication officer called out, "the human ships are not evacuating." Vex looked at the screen. The human fleet was still in its normal formation, showing no signs of panic or preparation for escape. "Maybe they do not understand the danger," Zek suggested. Vex opened a communication channel to the Liberty. "Commander Sullivan, you must evacuate immediately. A solar flare is approaching." Jake's face appeared on the screen. He looked calm and relaxed. "Thank you for the warning, Captain. We've detected the flare as well." "Then why are you not evacuating?" Vex asked urgently. "No need," Jake replied with a slight smile. "Our ships are designed to handle solar flares. We'll just boost our shielding and wait it out." "Wait it out?" Vex could not believe what he was hearing. "The radiation will kill you." "Actually, solar flares aren't that dangerous if you have proper shielding," Jake explained. "We encounter them regularly during deep space missions." Vex watched in amazement as the human ships simply adjusted their shields and continued normal operations. A deadly solar flare that was forcing the mighty Craxians to flee was just another minor inconvenience to the humans. When the radiation wave passed over the human fleet an hour later, their ships emerged completely undamaged. They had not even bothered to move from their original positions. "Impossible," Zek whispered. Vex slowly sat down in his command chair. The truth was finally clear to him. The Craxians were not the galaxy's ultimate Deathworlders. They were not even close. Humans treated deadly solar flares the way Craxians treated a light rain. What the Craxians considered impossible survival challenges, humans called Tuesday afternoon. "Open a channel to Commander Sullivan," Vex ordered. Jake's face appeared on the screen again. "Yes, Captain?" "Commander, I would like to make a formal request," Vex said humbly. "The Craxian Empire would like to establish diplomatic relations with Earth, not as conquerors meeting primitives, but as students hoping to learn from masters." Jake looked surprised, but pleased. "We would be honored to have peaceful relations with your people, Captain. There is one condition," Vex continued. "We would like to send some of our people to train with yours. We want to learn how to survive in truly dangerous environments." "Of course," Jake replied. "But I should warn you, our basic safety training might be challenging for your people." Vex almost laughed. After everything he had seen, he was sure that human basic safety training would be the most difficult thing any Craxian had ever attempted. 6 months later, Vex stood in a human training facility on Mars, wearing the heaviest environmental suit ever built for a Craxian. Around him, human instructors casually worked in conditions that would have been considered torture on Craxus Prime. "Okay, everyone," called the human instructor, a cheerful woman named Beth. "Today we're going to practice basic EVA procedures. Remember, we're only working in vacuum today, so this should be pretty easy." Vex looked at his fellow Craxian trainees. They were all experienced warriors who had survived the deadliest planet in their region of space. Now they were struggling with what humans considered beginner-level training. "Pretty easy," Vex muttered to himself, then activated his communication. "System, Instructor Beth, we are ready to begin." As he took his first careful step into the airlock, Vex realized something that made him smile despite his fear. The Craxians had spent centuries believing They were the toughest species in the galaxy. They were wrong about that. But maybe, with enough training and a lot of luck, they could learn to be almost as tough as a human child playing in a schoolyard. Almost.